Blog Talk Radio.
Om Shabbat Shalom, Holy Way of the Most High. Om Shabbat Shalom, I sense your presence. Om Shabbat Shalom, Holy Way of the Most High. Om Shabbat Shalom, I sense your presence. I sense your presence. And I am the light within your soul. In the essence of truth and right, love makes the circle whole. And here we stand in line, waiting for some sacred sign. But to find the balance is the purpose of this time. To restore the balance of the universal mind. And in the presence of my Lord of light and love, everything I see aspiring to be free. And when I call to thee, and come on bended knee, surrender to the all-pervading light and love. Reflections of the one surrounding me with love. And I sense your presence. I sense your presence. I sense your presence. I sense your presence. Within and without, above and below, yeah. East, west, north, and south, I sense your presence. Without and within, below and above, yeah. East, west, north, and south, I sense your presence. I sense your presence. Presence of my Lord of light and love, everything I find in tune with the divine. And here we stand in line, waiting for some sacred sign. But to find the balance is the purpose of this time. To restore the balance of the universal mind. And I am the light within your soul. In the essence of truth and right, love makes the circle whole. And when I call to thee, and come on bended knee, surrender to the all-pervading light and love. Reflections of the one surrounding me with love. For to find the balance is the purpose of this time. To restore the balance of the universal mind. And I sense your presence. I sense your presence. I sense your presence. I sense your presence. Om Shabbat Shalom, Holy Way of the Most High. Om Shabbat Shalom, I sense your presence. Om Shabbat Shalom, Holy Way of the Most High. Om Shabbat Shalom, I sense your presence. Om Shabbat Shalom, Holy Way of the Most High. Om Shabbat holy angel of the Most High. Om Shabbat Shalom, I sense your presence. I sense your presence.
Thank you for joining me here tonight on Activating Compassion in the Midnight Hour. My name is Jessie Ann Nichols George, and I'm your hostess this evening. The music you were listening to at the beginning of the show is I Sense Your Presence. It's by Shem Shia, a wonderful little group that I connected with when I was living in Arizona, and they were in the Sedona area, and now they travel all over the place. And if you'd like to find out more about their music, you can definitely do so, by the way. Just go right onto their website, www.shemshai.com. You can also connect with them on Facebook, and they oftentimes have a free download here and there that you can get as well. So check that out with them. I just want to extend a wonderful welcome to everybody who's joining us here tonight, whether you're returning and you've listened to the show before or whether you're joining us here for the first time, as well as to acknowledge all of our listeners, not only here on Blog Talk Radio, but also those streaming live through TalkStream Live, StreamFinder, and PEN, also known as Pair Encounters Network. Thanks very much to Eric, by the way, for all the great work he's doing. And I welcome everyone listening through those channels, as well as those that are catching our podcast as well, in TuneIn.com, iTunes, and through YouTube. I also just want to take a moment to say here at Activating Compassion in the Midnight Hour, what I do is I look at different ways that compassion exists in our lives, how to remove our blocks, resistances, frustrations, and more. Some weeks I'm discussing different aspects, how compassion's in our life and affects our life and the different areas of compassion. And then sometimes I'm doing more exercises and practical implementations, and sometimes our guests are offering that as well. And tonight is no exception to having a great guest on the show, which those who have been listening for a little while, you know that I've been lined up with them, and we're lined up with many more to come. And I also highlight different musical artists along the way. Last year included Stephen Halpern, Peter Cater, Jill Matson was on the show. I have some other artists that are coming on. Bruce Ciccarelli is going to be coming on later this year, just as an example. I also do have somebody that comes on that uses music for heart healing, so you're going to want to pay attention to that. And a couple other big names I'm just keeping the lid on for right now until I get all the final times and dates set up with them. And in my own work, by the way, what I do is I focus on helping people find and use compassion in their everyday lives. I've created the Genesis Clearing Statement, and if you've missed that, you can catch it in our archive. I've authored 4 books, the most recent being You, Me, Life Dreams, and its companion workbook, and my first 2 books, Activating Compassion and its companion workbook. In addition, I've created the Compassion Tour, which is a multi-state nationwide tour, including workshops, retreats, seminars, book signings, and fundraising events. And you can follow any live event that's available to register for at Jessie Ann Nichols George, that's my entire name, .eventbrite, that's EVENTBRITE.com. And just a reminder, if you enjoy the show this evening, make certain that you tell your friends and your family, those significant others out there, you know, the Facebook, Twitter connections, whatever. Really, I find when I'm sharing things through my social media, there's always somebody that comes through and they go, hey, Jessie, this is exactly what I was just talking about the other day. I was just saying that this was something that I needed to look into. So you never know whose life you might change just by clicking the share button. And they just can use also the same link on their Facebook, or use the same link that you use to get into the page here tonight, as well as they can find it on my webpage, Jessie Ann Nichols George, .com. And I've got my own page under the Main Street Universe tab on my webpage, and you can go in there and find all the archived shows there. So in addition to all the shows here on Main Street Universe, as well as they can go to iTunes, TuneIn.com, and again, YouTube, on my YouTube channel. They can get it from there as well. Now, those that have listened before, you know what I like to do about this point in the show is I like to delve into the 72 names of God, a little book by Yehuda Berg, a Kabbalah master. And what he does is he does a lot of what I do, which is taking some of these bigger complex topics and subjects and bringing them into our everyday lives and our everyday language. And it's really great to have these insights. And I do post this insight right after the show, so it's usually up within an hour after the show. so that you can go on to, again, my page on the Main Street Universe tab at JessieAnnNicholsGeorge1, and you can read this for yourself, refer back to it during the week if you'd like. And let's see here, Yehuda's message tonight, let's see what he's got. He's got long-range vision. Now, this should be very interesting with the topic that we have going on tonight. How many times have we thought, I should have seen it coming? And our lives are often full of heartache and problems simply because we failed to really see the situation confronting us. But suppose we could foresee all the consequences of the future right now. And the insight he gives on this is, Kabbalah teaches that 10 curtains are implanted in our consciousness, limiting our ability to perceive the true reality. As a result, we fail to judge situations accurately. We may get ourselves involved in a relationship, confident that we've made the right decision, but it turns out to be the worst mistake of our life. Business opportunities that appear lucrative at the outset become financial black holes. Likewise, situations that initially appear hopeless can be blessings in disguise. Lacking the ability to see the long-term consequences of short-term decisions, we have a maddening tendency toward misjudgment. Before entering into a marriage, a business partnership, or any new venture, we can utilize this name to ascertain whether trouble awaits us 10 to 15 years down the road. And the meditation he gives with this is, you have the power of clear vision and foresight in every part of your life. The blindfolds are removed. You grasp the cause and effect of relationship that governs all of reality. Your life choices and actions are motivated by ultimate results, not momentary illusions. You see more through your eyes, you perceive more through your mind's eye, you feel more through your intuition. It's a great little meditation to work with there by Yehuda. And this name, again, the common name is Long Range Vision, and the way the name is pronounced is Hey Resh Yod. Hey Resh Yod. And that's what it is. And again, you can find that on my page of the Main Street Universe tab on my website, JessieAnnNicholsGeorge1.com. And a little message here before we head into break, a little something to think about. And then we'll head into break and we'll be back with our guest tonight. How much do you pay attention to all the messages your body is sending you? Do you pay attention to all of your body messages, or only those that scream for your attention? How often do you take time to just be still and see what your body is saying? I have to say, I love the term body mindfulness, which I found from Stephanie Swafford, who does body alchemy work. A beautiful blend of seeing the body and mind connection. However, she takes it to deeper, peaceful states of patterning and awareness than a standard body-mind connection. And I bring this point up front because this term, I feel, leads into another step or dimension of where mind-body work is going. Now, we are used to perhaps tuning into our chakras or when we have discomfort in our bodies, but in the aspect of body mindfulness, it is more like a regular checkup of being fully aware of additional body aspects, such as posture, voice, speech patterns. And I have always known the body to be one of the greatest aspects of understanding ourselves, the patterns we are dealing with, and what we are being called to focus on. These things are shifting and changing in our life, depending on how active we are with working with ourselves, what is happening in our life at any given time. It can show our strengths and weaknesses, hopes and fears, joy and frustration, all rolled into one. A voice that trembles and breaks a lot may indicate insecurities or being uncomfortable. And that can play into being uncomfortable with what you are speaking or conflict between thoughts and feelings. Soft voices can still carry strength, and robust voices can indicate control challenges and insecurities. Hanging a head low and slouching can indicate various things such as fear, a lack of self-worth or confidence, victimization patterns that are being held onto. There are many different aspects here. And as we combine those together with those that have been around, such as what is happening in our chakras, health challenges, etc., we have one powerful way to understand ourselves. When was the last time you took a moment to be still and really listened and paid attention consciously to your body? What is your body trying to tell you? And what has your body taught you? This week, our guest focuses on a component of compassion that's related in the aspect of my books known as blind, deaf, defensive. This reminds us that we need to be willing to look at all the different messages we are receiving, including the ones that we don't want to see, hear, or even like. I'm going to take a short break, and when we return, I will have Stephanie Swafford with us, and she is going to be sharing her work with Body Alchemy. And the song that I've got for you during our break tonight is Dreaming with Wings. It's also known as Freedom, Freedom. It's by Claire Hedin. And if you'd like to find out more about her work or connect with more of her music, you can certainly do this at www.clairehedin.com, and that's CLAREHEDIN.com. We'll be back in just a few minutes.
A sense of sadness.
Welcome back. You are listening to Activating Compassion in the Midnight Hour, and my name is Jessie Ann Nichols George, and I'm your hostess this evening. You were just listening to a song by Claire Hedin called Dreaming, Dreaming, also known, Dreaming with Wings, also known as Freedom, Freedom. And you can check out more of Claire's work on her website, www.clairehedin.com. That's CLAREHEDIN.com. And I'd like to bring on my guest tonight, Stephanie Swafford, creator of Body Alchemy, personal trainer, body-mind practitioner, board-certified polarity practitioner, educator and registered Bach flower essence practitioner. She also has additional training in advanced craniosacral therapy, zero balancing, Reiki, and has a particular focus on body-mind integration. Now, Stephanie has also garnered 4 Emmys from her work in television, which came after majoring in drama at Northwestern and was with Good Morning America in their beginning years. We will be looking at her work as the creator of Body Alchemy and the life experiences that led her to this path. You can learn more about her work, by the way, at www.bodyalchemy.info. Okay, that's BODYALCHEMY.INFO. And I'm going to go ahead and get her mic opened up here. Stephanie, welcome to Activating Compassion in the Midnight Hour. It's such a pleasure to have you here with us.
Oh, it's lovely to be here. Thank you so much for asking me.
Yes, and I love, because we've had some body-mind practitioners on in the past, but I just love because your work expands on that to these deeper levels, and I want to get into that in just a little bit here, but in the meantime, what I'd love for you to do is start off by sharing who Stephanie is and how did Stephanie get into all of this work that you're doing now.
Well, if somebody had asked me when I left television, do you know you're going to become a body-mind practitioner? Do you know you're going to get into the wellness field? I would have laughed them into the street. However, the deeper I get into this, the more I realize that really all I've done is come full circle, because much of what I draw on has always been with me. I've always had innate abilities that I am drawing on in virtually every piece of my wellness work now. I suppose it starts with when I was young and a toddler. I was not one of these babies who made baby noises or cooed or did anything like that. And one of my grandmothers was convinced that I was either deaf or I had serious developmental problems. And there are early pictures of me just kind of watching and looking and listening. And evidently, one day when I was about 2, I just started speaking in full sentences. So I have been a watcher, a listener, a reader, in a very basic sense, for a long, long time. I have an ability, a gift, to be aware of several things at once, cross-reference many inputs, and boil it down to an essential clarity that serves me and my clients very well.
And and that's interesting. You say boil down to a clarity. How do you do that? Because I work in a huge diversity of different things, and that was one of my challenges when I started on my path, was how do I get this down to something reasonably clear?
Well, the best way I could explain it is probably to cross-reference it to the years I was in live television. And I got into live television because I realized as a drama major in college that I was much more interested in the backstory of a character than I was in performing a character. So instead of being in front of the camera, when I first got out of school, I went into production. And that's how I became one of the original staff members of Good Morning America, and then that led to ABC News and major political events and world events. And the more I got into live television, obviously the more there were opportunities for me to be in a control room, be in a tape room, be at a live remote where there could be as few as one and as many as dozens of inputs of monitors or tape machines or whatever. And for me, it was always very easy to pull the right shot or pull the right sound bite and craft a skeleton, for lack of a better word, for a piece, and then just drop in the segments that were necessary. I think some of it is just an ability to multitask, and I think some of it goes back to listening differently. It's not as if I'm clairvoyant or psychic or anything like that. I just seem to have this ability to pick out what's necessary for the next step.
And that's a real gift. And I think that is an important point that you bring up right then and there, because so many people, when they're working on their path, they're trying to force things to happen. They're trying to say, I'm going to do this or I'm going to do that, without looking at what they have a natural talent for, and then blending that into what they're doing. And
exactly.
And I think
what? Go ahead.
Oh no, go right ahead.
No. I think you speak to the point of what someone's talent is, and I sense another important piece is what the person likes. So many times is, well, I should be doing this, and I ought to do that, and I haven't done this, and if I were really good student, person, spouse, worker, I would do X, Y, or Z. And what really matters to us and what we really like and what comes naturally, not necessarily easily, but naturally to us, can often get lost in the shuffle.
Exactly. And therein starts to be where some of your work, I think, actually comes in when we talk about this body-mind connection and body mindfulness, because it does get lost in the shuffle. It's like that thing that's most obvious in front of your face, you can't even see it.
Exactly. Or you've been conditioned not to appreciate it, deepen it, cultivate it, fill in the blank.
Exactly. You've been taught, no, don't go that route. You've got to find something more practical, or you've got to find something more mainstream, or you've got to go this direction or that direction. And matter of fact, I've just been doing a lot of work in that particular area, and and that's a huge thing, I would say. So let's talk about this. You do what is called body mindfulness. What is that?
Well, we get a lot of information, and you gave me a great setup in your intro. Thank you very much. And the song you chose, Listening for an Answer or Sign. Basically what body mindfulness is cultivating your ability to listen. Listen to the whispers you were talking about, do you listen to your body, or do you listen to it only when it screams to you? And what I like to cultivate, what I like to teach is, if you're really listening, then you hear that first little, pay attention, rather than the screaming voice that's saying, you're about to go over the cliff. And it's a way of learning what your knowing feels like and what your feelings know. It's an open channel. We don't just, although we've all suffered from this, and Lord knows I still do, we don't just live from the neck up. It's not all thoughts and shoulds and I better do this and, oh, I know what to do. What about the rest of the system? The head's only what, maybe 10, 20%? What about that 80, 90% of information that we so often don't tap into?
Mm-hmm. And that's a big chunk right there. 80 to 90% of what we don't tap into. It's just huge. It's huge. We sit here and say so many times, I don't have this, I don't have that. We just haven't tapped into it, I think, in reality. And you mentioned listening. You mentioned listening, and the ability to listen, I can't emphasize enough, because we're trained in these days and times to talk, to do, to be on the action. We see this all the time with messaging and texting and all of these different things. We're trained to be on this action space, which is fine part of the time, but if we don't balance that out, as you say, we don't get the signs and the symbols and the messages. Because I find anytime I do take that time to listen, they're all completely there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's like any other talent. It's a matter of practicing.
Yes, and that practicing is that's a key thing. And the listening, though, that has got to be the number one thing. And what people forget is, I think oftentimes, is when you place yourself in the position of listening, you are putting yourself in a place of receiving. And when you're in a place of receiving, you're no longer resisting. So you're no longer forcing everything away. You naturally step into a state of abundance.
Exactly. And although I do want to make a point about resistance, I feel resistance gets a bad rap, and people so often say, "Oh, you're resisting. You're not doing your work. You must not resist. You must not resist." And I kind of like resistance as just another road sign that says, "Well, just pause and take a breath here. You need a little more information before you make the next move."
Well said. Well said. And I am one of those people that believe in seriously looking at that resistance, because, like you say, it's either tends to be a warning, or, as you say, it's a stop. It might be a yellow flashing light, or it might be a full-on red stop for you.
Exactly. Exactly. And barreling through. Oh, no, you're resisting. You must stop resisting. It's like, no, let's just stop and see what this is about.
And the resistance, as you say, it's a great messenger. It's a great teacher. It's a great way for us to understand. And it usually is, because we need to get some other piece of information before we move forward, I would say. So
exactly.
So we know that body mindfulness now is about listening. What is body alchemy?
Well, body alchemy was the name I took for my wellness practice when I first became a personal trainer after I left television. And had I been prescient at the time, I might have called it body-mind alchemy, but I didn't, and so it goes. I liked it because of the concept of alchemy and the esoteric piece of alchemy, and also the fact that the intention was to strive for gold, but the reality and the human quality of it was that it's something you aspire to, but do not reach. So it's an ongoing process of what's the next piece, what's the next bit of learning, what's the next bit of wellness, what's the next piece to release, and that's why I chose body alchemy. And it's morphed along with me, and I'm not quite sure it's as accurate as it once was, and I'm just leaving it for now and letting it see how it chooses to morph or not.
And alchemy is such a great term because it brings in so many different pieces, I think. I mean, it really is tapping into that inner self. So I find that to be a great term in there. And you mentioned aspiring toward a goal. Why would that be important for us?
I think the word I was using was gold, G-O-L-D, like the alphabet.
I'm sorry. Toward gold.
No. Thank you for the clarification. But it works either way of aspiring for gold, although we are not perfect like gold, G-O-L-D, and aspiring for a goal is just the next piece, just the next lesson, just the next teaching, isn't it? It's all part of spiraling up and evolving.
So that evolving is a big piece, and let's talk about that. How can one evolve using your body mindfulness techniques?
Well, it allows you to fine-tune your ability to read the road signs. We all know what it feels like. We've all done. I shouldn't have done that. I knew it was going to turn out the way it did, and I went ahead and did it anyway. We all know what that piece is like. Yes.
Oh yes.
At least once or twice. Yeah.
Or a few dozen times.
Oh, just a few dozen? Oh, I have you beat, but there we are. So what I'd like to do is cultivate the other end of that spectrum, which is the minute you get that first hit of heads up, there's something to pay attention to here, then you start to ask the right questions, stop and listen, go back to your practices, whatever they might be. We all know how to listen with the body-mind. We just don't do it for the big decisions or as regularly as we might, or we tend to dismiss it out of hand.
Yes, I think that's true. That dismissal happens way too often in things, and as you say, we know it's happening. We hear it. We see this oftentimes in relationships. We see it in work. We get that sense of what's going to happen, and it's ironic how many times I think we dig our heels in when we're getting those messages that say, okay, this is over, or this is done, or this is what's going, and you're saying, no, no, no. I have that picture of tagging the little kid along who's digging his heels in. And yet, when we stop digging our heels in on it, it seems like it's like you get to that space and it's like, oh, well, this is kind of a lot better than what I thought it was going to be. I was dreading this, but it's really not something to dread so much in there.
Exactly.
So what might be some of the body signs that would come up for somebody when that's happening for them?
Well, it can. I like to teach things broadly to begin with. So it can be as simple as we know when something feels right. We just know it. There isn't a lot of mind chatter. There isn't a lot of argument. There isn't a lot of justification. It just is. It just is. We also know when something doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel quite right. And I sense where we tend to get really balled up in the process is, well, why doesn't it feel right? And I have to know why it doesn't feel right. Maybe it doesn't feel right because it's something from my past, or just if it doesn't feel right, stop. Right there. You're getting important information. Now, you can start to unwind that to see what doesn't feel right, but it's not about staying in your mind. Sit with that sensation. Something doesn't feel right. Okay, it's not unlike resistance. I need more information. I need more information. Does that make sense?
Yes. It's another one of those caution signs. You've got a crossroad and nobody's got a stop sign.
Right. So that's a good time to just stop, maybe look both ways, maybe back up, maybe turn around, maybe wait for a passerby. Is this the right road? Is this how I go to point X, Y, or Z? And these are, of course, all metaphors for the actual practice. The bottom line is, if it feels right, it's quiet, it's absolute, it's lean. If it doesn't feel right, something's off. You might, your breathing might become more shallow. You might feel a tingling in the back of your neck. You might feel nauseous. You might feel a knot in the pit of your stomach. Your knees might go weak. It doesn't. It depends on what your specific somatic signature is.
And it's you were talking about things when they did feel right, and I was thinking about, somebody had asked me that question recently, and I said, well, part of it is because all of these other questions of worry and wondering and stuff cease. They seem to cease when it's right. Because when it's right, the fear goes out.
There is a lot of...
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was going to say the fear goes out, and it's like when it's that good, you're not having all of these questions running through your head.
Exactly. It's kind of it's sometimes what we call a no-brainer. When you make certain decisions, well, that's a no-brainer. That's a no-brainer. Well, when something feels right, it's a no-brainer.
Exactly. And I do have a question coming in from the chat room that says, is everything that's right and good for us always easy?
No. No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And it's not as if we, I don't mean to imply we spring full grown from Zeus's head, you know. It's a matter of layers. It's a matter of unwinding. Something feels right. For instance, I'll use myself. When I left TV, and it was literally a single galvanizing moment. And I was working freelance, and I was working with an executive producer I'd worked with on and off for years, and we worked well together. And he started to talk about, okay, well, this is what I want you to do next week, and this sensation came over me. It was almost like something was washed over me. And he got finished with what he wanted the piece to look like, and I looked at him and said, I'm not available next week. And he said, oh, okay, and he trundled off to wherever he was going. I had no bookings. I had no idea what I was going to do. I just knew I wasn't going to do TV anymore. Now, was it easy to leave TV, start over, recreate myself? No. Was it worth it? No question. No question. But there was this galvanizing moment of, I cannot do this anymore. And that's all that mattered. And the rest I sorted out.
Mhm. Yes. And it's true. We oftentimes have to follow those things, and there's definitely a difference between, I would say, somebody who just decides, I'm going to go off and follow this, and knowing absolutely it's right. Would you say that's true?
Yeah, I would say that's true. There's something very quiet about that deep knowing. The chatter mind falls away. It's absolute. It's lean. It just is. And when you get to those moments where it just is, hello, pay attention, you're on the right path, in my experience.
Mhm. Right. Yeah, and I found that too. It's so clear that when you're on it, and the doubts just aren't there, I would say. So let's talk a little bit about how our body talks with us. How does it talk with us? I know some of the things that you focus in on are voice and posture and tone. How do those things come together?
Well, if you overlay energy balancing paradigms onto voice or posture or movement, there are a lot of hints and indications that come up. You were talking about, for instance, somebody with their head down, and maybe they're shy or meek or uncomfortable in the situation. You take it a little deeper, their head might be down because they're not ready to see what's in front of them, or they're tired of seeing what's in front of them, or they're shouldering too many burdens, or they're not ready to look at what they know to be true. These are all indications for me. For a client I'm working with, I help them cultivate what if we were playing cards, it would be their tell. What are their tells? What are their go-to gestures that indicate, heads up, there's work to be done here. Heads up, you're going off into the ditch here.
Yes, and let's say, I think one of the common ones is that people tend to wrap their hands, and I think a lot of people do this even unconsciously. They wrap their hands like around their stomach or their solar plexus area.
Mhm.
What would that mean for somebody?
Well, it might mean something as simple as a bellyache. It could also mean, because that's also the fire area of the body, one of the fire areas of the body, the fire energy, how we step into life, how we take action. Are you tamping down your fire? Are you holding in your fire? Are you smothering your fire? How are you taking action? How are you not taking action in your life? What is the sensation telling you? Is it a hurt? Is it a dull ache? Is it a cramp? What does that tell you? What does that tell you? And the more willing you are to converse with sensations, what they tell you, what they know, and know you don't have to have a formal conversation. It's a matter of opening up a channel, paying attention. Aha, what's happening here? Ah, yes, okay, I see.
Yes, and I think that's a good point, is identifying, too, the different types of things that are coming into that region, and this is exactly kind of an example of, I would say, what you do when you're talking with your body. It's like, okay, I'm doing this, and, what is it that I'm feeling in this area? I mean, a lot of us do things automatically, but there's things going on inside of us that's generating that action, hoping we'll pay attention to it, I would say.
Exactly. The more willing we are to listen to the whispers, as the phrase goes, the less we have to go into crisis mode.
Thank you for that. Because, yes, thank you for that. I think if people did that exact thing that you just mentioned, listen to the whispers, which is really great. And that could be maybe even, I'm thinking, taking some time every day or just a pause from the day for 5 minutes to stop and go, okay, what's happening in my body right now, and actually be conscious of it. Because it's kind of like that little child. If they don't get heard, they start screaming louder. And when we talk about the body, then that translates over, I would think, to disease and pain and other things that become more disabling to make us be still and pay attention.
Exactly. I like to work with the system, whether it's mine or someone else's, when we're in the dis-ease, the discomfort mode, before it gets to disease.
And I think that's
exactly like a child. It's exactly like a child who tugs on your sleeve, and the more you ignore that child, the more they go into meltdown, and then having a temper tantrum in the middle of the store, the street, the room. It's kind of irrelevant where they're having the temper tantrum. But how different would the end result have been if on that first or second tug you dealt with whatever the child was bringing up?
Exactly. And I think this is so critical because it plays back into some of what we discussed a little bit in our question earlier, is everything right and good, always easy? And I feel like it can be if we listen to the whispers. It's not always going to be, but the more we listen to the whispers, then the easier it would flow, it would seem to me, as a general rule of thumb.
Yeah, I would agree, as a general rule of thumb. And, there's always an unforeseen pothole in the road or something we hadn't quite anticipated. But then come back to listen to the whispers. Okay, what is this? What is this moment teaching me? What am I feeling? What am I knowing? How do the two sync up? Because the more you get to know how your knowing manifests itself as body mindfulness, the easier it is to navigate whatever challenge you're going through.
Exactly. And I think, that so many of these things, too, people get wrapped up into these different spaces and they think, man, I wish that I had noticed this sign when I first met this person. Or I wish I had paid attention to this in the interview and I would have had a much better idea of what was going to happen.
Exactly.
And I think
that goes back to that not quite right feeling. We meet the person and it's all moon, June, spoon, and ain't it great? And there's just a moment where you go, ooh, that's sort of over. That's just a moment. But those are the moments to pay attention to. Same thing in the interview where, this is great and I'm going to love it and on. And the new boss-to-be says, and you'll be available on weekends and you'll work 10, 12, 14-hour days. And you go, oh, yeah, but I really want it. And it's like, and there you are, working 10, 12, 14-hour days and working weekends. And is that what you really wanted to do?
Exactly. And I think of how many times when I reflect back to when I've worked in the corporate world and I think I should have paid attention to this or I should have paid attention to that, because the way this person was being, I could have known there was discord in this company, or things were incongruent, or this boss was going to be a controlling, demanding boss, or things like that. And I think when we're willing to step off of that pedestal a little bit and get a different view, then we can certainly do that. And I've got another question coming in from the chat room area here, which is, when someone is depressed, what do you think the issue is? And they say, I know this is kind of a big, wide open question, but say being unhappy in general with the world and people in it. And this is actually, I think, a good question, because I think a lot of people are experiencing this sort of unhappiness today. They're feeling maybe a little overwhelmed, or things with the direction things are going. There's maybe a sense of powerlessness in this.
Well, what comes up for me is the first question I would ask, because it is depression. And let me say at the outset, I'm not a psychiatrist. I have no clinical training. So I would go the energy route. And what comes up for me is, what is pressing on you in your life? What is depressing your spirit, your energy, your drive, whatever you want to call it? What is pressing on you that makes it such a challenge to move forward, feel differently, get out of bed, leave the house, whatever the manifestation of the depression is? What is pressing on you that is causing this reaction? That's where I would go with it. That's what comes up for me.
And I would ask this person, I can see they're getting ready to type something else. I would say, too, maybe paying attention to any common things you're seeing. Does that person regularly slouch? Does that person speak with a meek voice? They're saying they think that they're talking about a coworker, and they're saying they think that it's their past, and they've tried to let it go, but they won't let it go. And when you talked about the pressure, and that has been my experience. When people get depressed, it's coming from pressure of something that they feel they can't deal with, but of course we always can deal with it. It's just maybe overwhelming in that moment. And I think that you have something on your webpage, maybe, Stephanie, that you talk about. The first step is somebody has to want to be able to work with you. They have to be willing to put in the effort or do the work, and some people just aren't.
Well, some people aren't ready, and my style is certainly not for everyone, because I particularly in the last couple of years, I have really stepped into my ability to work very quickly and very efficiently, and not everybody's ready for that speed and that immediate clarity. But no, I'm at the point where if you're not ready to do your work, I totally honor that choice, and I'm not the practitioner for you. Because the minute I start working with someone, we're working. And if somebody says to me, well, I don't know what to do, the first thing I say is, yes, you do. Yes, you do. We may need to do a little excavating, but you know what you want to do. You know what you need to do. And invariably, that's the case.
That excavating is, I think, a huge piece. And when we talk about some of these things, it really is the person has to open that door themselves in things, I would say. And sometimes the best thing we can do is be a door to be available when they're ready to take those steps.
Exactly. I can help someone open the door. They have to cross the threshold themselves.
Yeah, you can open the door and hold it open for them, but they still got to walk through it. And exactly. I think that that's a big key. And there's so many pieces when we start getting into somebody's past, and they have to be ready to do, as you say, that excavation work there to ask the questions, and some people have grown so comfortable to that, and there's I can think of thousands of connections, and I could probably go on for hours.
No, but just to get back to what that person had talked about in the chat room, and my thanks to the chat room for asking questions and participating. It may very well be something from the past that, again, is pressing down on them, weighing heavily on them. You know, we use these body phrases in English, and it's for a reason. So there may be something in the past that needs attention and hasn't been, well, I might not even say healed, I might say unwound to the point where the person can get out from under this pressure. It could be as simple as a thought that drives the system.
And I've noticed that if I pay attention to somebody else's body language and what they're displaying, just like if I listen to my own, that oftentimes I can get an idea of what's happening without having to do that, which then allows me to shift maybe how I'm working with that person, which then allows them to maybe start the excavation work. And I don't know if you've experienced it, but it's like if somebody is really slouched over all the time and their head is down and things like that, that pressure, for example, might be coming from their past of being felt as if they weren't good enough, or they were heavily being judged, or there's a lot of pressure on them to perform, or things like that. So sometimes I think if we pay attention that way, again, that's stopping and listening, as you mentioned, to what's happening or seeing what's happening there, you sometimes can get that insight. And if I know enough from that space to say, okay, somewhere there's an insecurity issue, I don't have to know it all, but what I do need to know is maybe is there something I can do to make that person feel more comfortable?
Right.
Maybe
the great thing about energy is you don't necessarily need to know the specifics of what's known as the story.
Mm-hmm.
You just need to know the quality of energy, and then you can meet it and help guide it to a different quality.
Thank you. Exactly. And that's the key. We don't have to know all the details a lot of times to make a difference. And this is where you were talking about why the energy work would be more effective in a case like that. And that leads me into, tell us a little bit more about energy balancing and why that's so important for us.
Well, that's a term I use because I'm well-versed in several different methods of energy work. And I've gotten to the point in my practice where I really cherry-pick from several different modalities, and sometimes I can be working in as many as 3 modalities in one moment. And what I love about energy work is, one of the many things I love about energy work is I consider energy the template for form. And if someone has a nagging ache between their shoulder blades, I like to get into the energy underneath. It's like flying under the radar in a way. Get in and work with the template of form. What is the energy that's creating this structure, so that by working with that energy, the structure tends to resolve itself more efficiently. It's like working with a blueprint. You can decorate a room, but if you don't have the basics of what the room is going to look like, then your room is going to look a little odd.
Right. If you just start throwing up pieces of wood and you don't have a concept of how big you're going to make something, things could come up pretty off. Exactly. And energy work is systems of patterns. And that's a big thing, because I think a lot of people don't understand that. They hear this term energy work and, energy, and they don't really grasp what that is. And you talk about it being a pattern. Can you describe that a little bit more for us?
Well, it depends on which energy system you're working in. But the way I like to consider energy, particularly if I'm working with someone who, you and I were talking about this earlier, that we both spent time in California, and people can get very out there as far as energy goes. And that scares a lot of people, and I understand it and respect it. So when I'm presenting energy, per se, to someone, I like to call it movement. Energy is movement. Is the system moving efficiently? Is the system tangled somewhere? Is there a point of concentrated energy that needs a little release? That's really all energy is, and many of the energy systems are, depending upon whether it's craniosacral or Reiki or acupuncture or acupressure. It's about allowing the system to right itself and self-correct.
And I think that's a big thing for people to keep in mind, because so many people think that they've got something that is defected, or is damaged, but it always has the coding in there of how to correct itself. It's really just a matter of kind of getting it back on track a little bit. It's just a matter of it's kind of like you take something and you put it in the pot to cook. Well, it knows how to cook.
Exactly.
We don't have to do that for that. It never forgets how to cook. But sometimes we have to go in and adjust the heat so it doesn't burn them and create a fire.
You have to stir the pot for a while, or, if you're making soup as opposed to stew, you need to get it off the heat earlier than not. Basically what I do is I just shepherd someone else's process.
Yes. So you're just kind of guiding it. You're just kind of helping it remember what direction to go, in a sense. And I was
exactly.
just
It knows what it needs to do. And if I'm working, I don't have to work hands-on. And if I'm working hands-on, the system is basically saying, go here, make this connection. I create a fulcrum around which the system can reorganize itself. Then the body-mind, the system, and I won't necessarily use the word body-mind if I'm working with someone who's a little skittish about it. Then the system says to me, fine, I've got this. Now go over here and make this connection. It's like, okay, glad to be of service.
And that's where somebody with your training comes in, because you've really learned how to listen to what it's saying and identify what's happening with it. And I think that's a good reason of why we would maybe go to somebody else. And somebody was mentioning, regarding working with energy, whether it's within the 3D or higher dimensions, that we can work through energy in these kind of multi-dimensional levels. And I think that's true. We work in the third dimension on some hands because we're in that physical body, and then we're tapping into some of those higher dimensions, obviously, anytime we tap into healing energy. So because you're tapping into that higher thought form, that memory pattern there. So how does all of this work that you're doing, Stephanie, clear patterns for us in our life?
I'm not quite sure of what you're asking me.
So if we have a pattern going on in our life, for example, let's say I have a pattern of not speaking up for myself. How can this work help me clear that pattern?
Well, the first thing I would ask you is, what do you get out of not speaking up for yourself?
Oh, well,
what do you get out of not speaking up for yourself?
Well, let's say that if I don't speak up for myself, then I don't run into judgment and conflict from other people.
Okay. And how's that working for you?
Well, sometimes it's good. I can stay out of it, but then it seems like I also never get to be included in things.
So then my next question to you would be, how badly do you want to be included in things?
Well, that's a good question because there's a big piece of me that says I don't want to be, and then there's another piece of me that says people are really, really valuable. It's important to have those connections. I do want people to take into account what I have to say, and I feel like if I'm not speaking up, they're not. My opinion isn't going to count.
What does it feel like in your body mind when you don't speak up?
It feels. I get feelings of isolation. I get feelings of rejection. I feel rejected. I feel outcast.
Okay. And when you do speak up for yourself, what does that feel like?
Usually when I speak up for myself, that actually feels pretty powerful.
So what you're telling me is you do know how to speak up for yourself.
Right.
So it's just a matter of taking that practice that you already know how to do and overlaying it onto new and different situations.
Wonderful. And I wanted to use that because there's so many people out there that don't speak up for themselves. They step back and they stay quiet. And I think that was a beautiful example of how you work with somebody in this process and how you identify it. Because once we realize that we can do it, I think at the starting point in our consciousness, we're thinking, I can't do this. Nobody's going to hear me. Nobody's going to listen. Nobody's going to care. But when
you can't have gotten to this point in your life without having spoken up at least a handful of times. So that indicates to me you know how to do it. It's just a matter of, in many ways, it's almost like exercising. You're just training new muscles to do something that you know how to do differently. That's all.
Beautiful. Beautifully explained on that. Because I think we do. You use muscles as an example. And, if we go to the gym and we just start working out on equipment and we don't ask for any help along the way and we try to do it, we're going to get a limited amount out of that equipment. But as soon as we say, hey, can you show me how to use this equipment over here, all of a sudden we start working our muscles differently and we get all kinds of results happening with it. So definitely I think that was a beautiful example, beautifully put in there. And I appreciate you for sharing that and for giving people some insight on how this can happen. And, of course, it does play in as well with the energy work and different things you do to help clear those things and release on the emotional level. Because I don't know about you, but for me, I find it to be a blend between releasing the body and releasing the mind, and that they are working.
Absolutely.
Yes. And that's why it's important for somebody with your skills and your background and your talent, because you can release on both levels for people.
Thank you. Thank you.
So now you have a little, let's say, exercise for us, and we have lots of time to work with here, so you can take your time with this. You have a little exercise for us that you wanted to share to give our listeners a taste of what you do as well.
Well, it's a real basic piece of listening with your body-mind. and it brings us back to what we already know how to do and reminds us, ooh, we really do know how to listen with our body-mind. And if I'm introducing someone to the concept of listening with the body-mind, with your body-mind, I'll start with real simple choices. Like, for instance, do you like chocolate or vanilla? Do you like jazz or classical music? Do you like to watch a drama or a comedy? Fiction, nonfiction? Thai food, Italian food? And I just do simple choices like that, and invariably, without even thinking, if I say, do you like chocolate or vanilla, a person will say chocolate. I'll say, how do you know? Well, I just know. Well, how do you know that? Well, I know it. I just know it. I like it better than vanilla. It's like, okay. Well, experience and thought and sensation, your body-mind knows that you like chocolate as opposed to vanilla. There is no chattering. There is no, well, let's see, I should probably say vanilla because my mother always liked vanilla, or maybe I should say chocolate because I haven't had chocolate in 2 weeks and I should have chocolate, or I don't know what to say. It's just, man, I like chocolate. Boom, end of the sentence. So it goes back to that concept of a no-brainer. There isn't a lot of justifying. There isn't a lot of chatter going on. You just know it. It feels right. The sensations that you're feeling are usually calm and easy and settled. And the thoughts are quiet, low-key, non-existent. Then you get a sense that you're on the right track. There isn't a lot of fuss and noise when we make no-brainer choices. They're crystal clear, they're absolute, they're totally in the present. You know they feel right. So then what I'll teach someone to do is like, okay, for the next little while, set these choices up for yourself. Make them simple. Make them, do I want to have Coke or Pepsi? Do I want to have wine or vodka? Do I want to go to the movies or stay home? A shower or a bath? Just start to play with two choices and track what comes up, what's easy for you to decide, what takes more time, what leaves you at a total loss, and you can't decide. Start to track that. What does that feel like? What does it feel like when it's easy? What does it feel like when it isn't? And then once you know your tendencies, start to make more, for lack of a better description, important decisions. Go beyond Coke or Pepsi. Go beyond chocolate or vanilla. What I like to do, especially if you're in a city, come to an intersection, okay? Shall I walk right or left? Shall I cross the street? Shall I go back? And just allow yourself to be guided by what your inner wisdom feels like. The more you practice that, the more you get a sense of, okay, it's quiet. I just know there's a nice settling that goes on in my body-mind. For someone else, your breathing might slow down. For someone else, there might be this real sense of sharpness in your eyesight. It all depends. And that's where you go back to your personal somatic signature, your tell. Keep practicing, keep practicing, keep practicing, and the more you get to know your body-mind, then you can start to move from the no-brainers to the major life decisions. It's the same process. Now, do I stay or do I leave this relationship? Do I go to college or do I get a job? Do I quit work and go back to school? Clearly, those are more complex than chocolate or vanilla. However, the process is exactly the same. So, for instance, let's use, do I stay or do I leave this relationship? Maybe the initial question is, can I do this the rest of my life? And you'll get an immediate answer, no, or yes. If it's yes, fine. If it's no, okay, you have more information to work with. Okay, well, if I can't do it the rest of my life, can I do it 5 more years? No. Okay, that's more information. Can I do it 1 year? Well, yes, I can do a year. Okay. Again, more information. How about 2 years? No, I don't think I can do 2 years. It doesn't feel right. All right. So immediately you have structure for a shift in energy. I can't do this for 2 more years. Okay. So now you know within the next 2 years you're going to make a change in this relationship. You know you can't do this longer than 2 years the way it is. Great information to have. So now you start to make the other decisions. All right, do we go into therapy or not? Do I start seeing someone outside of this relationship or not? Do I consider moving out or not? Any number of these decisions start to open up and you can start to play with them. The exact same process.
This is, I think, big what you're bringing up here because it seems like, if I'm understanding you correctly, that yes, no questions help us create this structure and this foundation from which we can build everything else. And if things are feeling very confusing, very clouded, very like I really don't know what direction, it's kind of about getting it down to these yes-no questions. Like you say, can I deal with it for this period of time? So it almost seems like these yes-no questions help us get clarity in our mind.
Yes, I would agree to that. I mean, if we go back to the crossroads you were talking about, the crossroads, we have a limited number of choices. That's a good thing. If we are standing in a whole big traffic circle that has many split-offs, then we're going to have this sense of being overwhelmed. It's like, I don't know whether to go right or left or back or forward or round and round and round. The more you bring it back to, all right, take it to the crossroads. You're going forward, backwards, you're going right or left. Now don't even make it a crossroads. You come to a road, all right? Do I go right or left? Right or left? Right or left? I don't know. Okay, so just stay where you are, breathe, pay attention, and see where you're guided.
The crossroads is becoming a better and better example because I think almost anything in life that we are faced with, we could stop and look at and say, is it moving me forward or is it moving me backwards? Am I evolving or am I feeling stuck?
I think that's accurate. And there is, no harm, no foul in standing at the crossroads and just paying attention, not taking action, just paying attention.
Yeah.
Goes back to that not quite right feeling or that right feeling. I don't quite have enough information. All right. So pay attention and gather more. If we listen with our body minds, we can respond rather than react.
And that's the big key because our reaction spaces are when other things have control over us, and our response spaces are when we are holding our own power.
Right, exactly. we're coming from a place of clarity rather than clarity and order rather than a place of chaos and disorder.
Yes. So now where do we go from here? In the process?
Well, it depends, now we get into specifics, and it depends on the person, it depends on the challenge, it depends on their speed of change, their readiness to change, their willingness to change. But the minute you have a toehold in what your knowing feels like, then you can start to build on that, then you can start to run with it.
And that's the key, is getting those foundations. So bringing that back around a little bit, it's not so much that something is right or wrong or that sort of thing, as much as it is this concept of you've got to stop and tune in and say, it comes back to what you said, what feels right. What feels right. And somebody was mentioning, well, what do you do when you get to the crossroads and we chose a direction and we found it could have been different if we made a left instead of a right. Well, I think of course it's going to be different, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it was any better. And somebody else is saying you can't make the wrong decision.
Well, there are no wrong decisions as long as we're learning something from it. And as far as choices, in my experience, there are only 3 choices that you can't remake. And one is murder, one is suicide, and one is giving birth.
Yes.
Find yourself in a bad relationship, you can leave it. You don't like your job, you can leave it. You can never not have given birth.
Mm-hmm.
And suicide and murder are pretty final. But pretty much all our other choices,
Pretty much so, yes.
But pretty much all our other choices we can just remake. Now, they might take a while to untangle, and it's just a choice. It's just a choice. If you don't like the choice, remake it.
It's kind of like if you're driving down a street and you don't like the street, you turn the car around.
That's it. That's it. But we all get locked into this, oh, my God, I made a choice and I can't unmake it. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Might be a little messy, but you can still unmake it. Just a choice.
And and somebody was commenting on your phrase there and saying, we can't make choices from them. We can't undo them, is what you said. Of course, that delves into a whole other discussion, whether we can make choices from them. It's a choice to do the action, but you can't undo the action. And I think that's where they're getting a little bit confused.
Okay. You can't undo the action, but you can make a different choice and take a different action.
Right. So
does that clarify it?
Yeah, so I think the key is that, yes, it's a choice still to do those actions, but you can't undo the actions, and that's the key. As you said, there's only those couple of things that you can't undo and, make them not happen, so to say.
Exactly.
In that.
Exactly. And the other is you just make a different choice. You take a different action. And if you learn from, well, I really messed that up, note to self, don't do it that way next time. All right, good information to have.
Mhm. And that's the thing, there's always going to be information. It's like you say, when you're sitting there at the crossroads, if you just sat and watched for a while, you would see how many people were going one direction or another direction perhaps, or you would be able to see what shows up while you're sitting there.
Yes.
And I think, yeah.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, and I think that what happens for a lot of people is they tend to get panicked and feel pressured that I've got to make the decision right now in this very second. And I would say there's very few.
My question would be why? Why do you have to make it in this second?
Yeah, I think there's
why do you have to make it in this second? Is something bad going to happen if you don't make it in this second?
Right, and I think there's so few things that would require that, and the things that require that are natural instincts kicked in to the point you're not thinking about it.
Exactly. I'm standing at the crossroads, and there's a fire behind me, so that is a pretty good indication of perhaps I'd like to get out of the area I'm in.
You'd like to move away from the fire.
Exactly. And that's where, as you said, instinct kicks in, and it's like, hello, my feet are moving, and I didn't know they were moving, but I'm getting away from the fire.
Right, exactly. In there. I think that is just such a great way to put it. Now, Stephanie, talk to us a little bit about anything that you've got going on or coming up, and how do people reach you? How do they connect with you?
Well, the best way to find me is on my website, which you talked about earlier. Thank you, www.bodyalchemy.info.
And how do you spell that, Body Alchemy, just so everybody's clear?
BODYALCHEMY.info. You can phone me. You can email me. If you'd like, please sign up for what I call my A Touch of Alchemy, my monthly notes and musings. I'm not a big, I admire you, Jessie, in all that you generate, the videos, the written word. It is not my style, and I am very impressed. And I will admit that my lower self is like, ooh, you're not doing this right. This is how you're supposed to do it. So, if you think the practitioner has it all sorted out, not always, not quite. I tend to work one-on-one more than I do in group settings. Every once in a while I'll do a workshop, and I have found that my rapid style is pretty selective. It's not something that is as mainstream as some other practitioners' work is. And that's just kind of how I do what I do.
And that's okay. And I feel like, I got a very sage piece of advice from a marketing person once, and they said to me, and I might even have to bring her on the show at some point because she's really good. She says, marketing by any standard formats is not necessarily going to work for you. And it's got to fit your personality. And if your personality is not to put certain things out there, or, and you've got to do them all your way, even if you do put them out there. So I appreciate you acknowledging me for that, because it's always nice to know that people are watching those and seeing what's being put out there. But with your work now, does somebody have to be live with you, or can you work through Skype or phone, or?
No, you don't have to be live with me. Well, yes, yes, we have to be live, but yes, phone, Skype, in person, and I've refined the work to the point where if we do table work, great, and it's not necessary to do the table work. The work will still get done. It'll just get done differently.
Okay. Good. And I think that this is important to know for people, because those questions come up and they think, I'm not in her area or something. And I do like people to know that they can still get work done, buy from you. And I think, like anything, because I have, I have some things coming through that, people are mentioning some different things about what's clicking for them and what's not clicking for them. And I feel like when we get any modality, whether it's your modality, my modality, somebody else's modality, there is no one way, there is no one option. Work is not necessarily for every single person out there. And if something resonates with you, and this comes back to what we've been talking about all night, if it resonates with you, great. And if it doesn't, as my friend says, that's groovy too.
That's groovy too.
It's groovy too, and that's okay. It's okay if parts work and parts don't work, or somebody's modality works or somebody's modality doesn't work. And I think these things change, because I know for myself, for example, I've looked at a modality at one point and it just wasn't clicking in for me at that time, and maybe I came back to it 5 years later and all of a sudden it made total sense and it was exactly what I needed.
A lot of it is right timing, and as far as I'm concerned, it matters little how you get there. It just matters that you get there. Yes.
And I think that that's a key thing. And I have to say, you really do have some great things on your website, and you have a great little gift for people when they sign up for your email list, which is how to listen with your body, mind. And you do your own notes and musings and things like that every month. So people have this way of learning, and you've got some great little insights, because I was looking on your Facebook page and I was like, wow, she's got some really great points that she's posting in there. And so it's definitely worth it to go in and check out Stephanie's website. And again, that's bodyalchemy.info on there. And Stephanie, any point that you would like to leave us with tonight? Any little last summary point?
Well, I really feel if we learn to listen with our body minds, we can really change our lives and do it a lot more efficiently, quietly, easily. I'm a big fan of no muss, no fuss. And I'm also, despite the fact I was a drama major in school, I'm a big fan of not going in for high drama anymore. Life tends to be complicated enough, and we have a pretty strong hand in helping that sometimes. I like to get back to simplicity, minimalism. What really matters? What really matters? What really matters to you in your life? What's working? What's not? What if your life could be so much better, even better than it is now? Wouldn't that be something you'd like to explore, cultivate, make happen?
And I think that is a big thing, and I think that's a great summary point that you made there. And it wraps it up very, very nicely with what we've been discussing about. I really so much appreciate you providing your time and your energy and coming on the show this evening and sharing the work that you're doing with body mindfulness, because I think this is a very powerful modality that you're working with, and you're taking these standards and these basic pieces and really raising them to the next evolutionary level.
Thank you. Thank you for your kindness and gracious support and interest and appreciation of my work, and for getting my work. I appreciate that very much.
It's definitely my pleasure. And again, we've been talking tonight with Stephanie Swafford, and again, you can look up her work at www.bodyalchemy.info on there to check out the work that she's doing. If you missed any part of the show, certainly you can go back and catch that in the archives and pick that up as well. It'll be available as soon as the show is over tonight. Next week on the show, I will have Dr. Linda Gadbois, and we will be looking at geometric patterns in life, crop circles, and creative transformation. So we're really going to be taking a look at those crop circles and geometric patterns. So that should be very, very interesting to look at. It's a great time of year where we have those things going on, summer times here. And, again, my books on relationships have been released. You can find the links to check those out and purchase them at JessieAnnNicholsGeorge1.com. And they're designed to help you activate the perfect relationship for you, and you'll learn how to find, develop, and maintain your perfect relationship, as well as understanding all those great dynamics that go on with your partner, because it's not just male-female type of thing, but it's about how we each have the masculine and the feminine energy within us, and it helps us to understand how and what our partner is thinking, feeling, and needing, and how to communicate in ways that's going to strengthen your relationship and avoid the drama. I've also released several events for 2014, and you can check more of those out at JessieAnnNicholsGeorge.eventbrite.com. If you'd like to find out more about the work I'm doing with compassion, you can connect with me, check out my blog, purchase products or services that I offer, find ways to connect with me outside of my webpage, like social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, listen to archive shows, see upcoming shows, watch video tips, see the courses I have going on. All of those things you can do through my website. And again, that's JessieAnnNicholsGeorge1.com. And there's also a great section on the website for all of Main Street Universe. You can follow all of our hosts, catch all the upcoming shows for all the different hosts there. Our archive shows are on there, and learn a little bit about all the people that are part of Main Street Universe. And that's listed at the bottom of today's show description. And then also I have a special running, which I do every month. Just go right onto my homepage. And this month I've got 25% off for those who go ahead and register for the August event. We do have several shows here on Main Street Universe, by the way, throughout the week. Sunday nights we have Darren Bouquet, who's a reader at Madame Louveau in New Orleans. He does spiritual insights, so a little bit of discussion. He does some readings on that show, really great. If you're ever looking for a reading or a little bit of insight, Darren's a wonderful reader. Monday nights we have Randy Goldberg doing Vedic astrology. Tuesday nights, Susan Weed. I actually tune into Susan's show quite regularly myself, and she's sharing her work in herbs and natural plants, and she is so very knowledgeable on that. Wednesday nights is our flagship show. We have Daniel, Janice, and Brett shows up on there, and that's called Main Street Universe. They do different things. Sometimes there's guests and interviews, and sometimes they're doing readings, and sometimes they're talking about different topics. Thursdays we have Queen Mother Umaku, who looks at different heritages, cultural things, Egyptian culture. Fridays we have Kevin Baird walking on the sidewalk with his Horizon Oracle Journeys deck. So that's earlier in the day prior to my show, and that's a deck that he himself created. You can learn more about that deck at his website, templeofgaia.com. And then, of course, Friday nights is Activating Compassion in the Midnight Hour. This is Jessie Ann Nichols, George. I want to thank you so much for being here tonight. And again, thank you to all of our listeners, not only on Blog Talk, but also those streaming live through PEN, also known as Para Encounters Network, Streamfinder, and TalkStream Live, as well as those catching our podcast at iTunes, TuneIn.com, as well as those catching the YouTube version of our show. And a special thanks again just to Stephanie Swafford for being on tonight and sharing her time and her energy with us. And don't forget, if you've enjoyed the show this evening, share it with others. It's going to be available at the same link in our archives, or you can catch it on my page of the Main Street Universe tab on my website. And I'm going to leave you tonight with a song called Yearning For, also known as Over and Over. It's by Shem Shai. And thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you again next week right here on Activating Compassion in the Midnight Hour. May you enjoy the rest of your weekend and have an absolutely amazing week.
And if I could see what makes me blind, I would soar to the edge of my mind, and to touch what seems unreal, just to show you the way that I feel. And we are in time with time, one with the season of change inside. And we are in tune with the tune, caught in a balance of sun and moon. Oh, deep inside, the light within, shining to show you it's here to begin. When all I have is all I need, I will soar to the edge of eternity. And we see it eye to eye, one within love to be for the divine. And we're walking hand in hand, caught in the balance of God and man. Over and over, life is your lover, learning to walk just a little bit slower, whispering secrets, I bet you can't keep it. No turning back now, this time we reveal it. One to another, all will discover the essence within the most beautiful lover. Time is still turning, the love is still burning. Deep in your spirit, your heart still yearning for. Yearning for. Still burning, deep in your spirit.